Hello, hello.
Okay, now you're plugged into my brain, I think. How's everybody doing?
Doing pretty good, Vince. So
I guess so. I'm wrestling with VPN, so that's life as it is, right?
Always fun.
getting back from vacation here, trying to figure out where everything went.
At some point, I enabled Vim mode on HackMD, and it just makes me laugh every time I open it now. So I don't know how I did it. I don't really care to turn it off.
Hey,
all right.
Thanks for handling the last few YouTube recording updates. I got a little behind, so thanks for doing that.
No, it's good. I think we should both, if we have access to it. I forget that I have access to it. So you've done it for a while. It's good. Do you ever do any kind of special editing to those? You just dump them straight on YouTube?
I take too much time to figure out when the actual discussion starts and usually chop it off there. But, not a big deal. either way.
Yeah, that's fair. Good. Gonna refill my cup real quick.
So it looks like I'm the only one on the agenda right now. If anyone wanted to talk about anything more urgent, I can hold this because last time my topic spun out of control. So
There was a security advisory. I'm not sure if anybody could possibly have missed that, but just in case there was one, FYI.
I was about to chime in
I
and
was
ask if there's any messaging that we should be doing for that.
That's I meant to add it to the agenda and I totally forgot. No, I won't preempt Josh. I'm just putting it on here.
oh, as you walked away, I said, please preempt me.
Okay. Even though I was the one that had opened the, even though I was the one that had opened the advisory on GitHub and sent out the email, there was a lot of discussion and work by a lot of people on that security advisory. I will welcome any questions around it. And I think that the neat thing to say is that it's the release process. We were since we had never done a release like this, we tried to make sure, because there was a brief moment where there was a lot of stuff that could have been released in both the image and distribution spec if we just tagged it on the end of main, tagged a release on the end of main, but we decided to kind of do it in a way to where the whole community would be involved in the discussion of releasing all the features that have been merged into main in the meantime. And so the wording that was updated on both distribution and image spec are not breaking, which was important. They're strongly worded shoulds and a few musts, but they're like kind of conditional musts. The neat thing that I think is that it's very mitigatable issue or behavior to mitigate with. Sadly, it could almost be a neat feature had it been well defined since the beginning. But as it was, and that kind of the behavior that people have come to expect with fetching an image and then effectively relying on this content type to be provided in the HTTP headers, so that they know how to work with the payload they're receiving. Just needed some definition so that we don't have any malicious use of it. And because it's mitigatable and all this kind of stuff, I don't think, like this, we wrestled on where to classify it, low, medium, high, whatever. Nobody that was involved from all the different registry services we talked to or otherwise, nobody thinks that this has been used anywhere in the wild. And so now like mitigations have already been like rolled out by most services to kind of prohibit the use case. So there were some services where this just couldn't even work because of how the registry is implemented, and that's good. But there's no evidence that it's been toyed with either for fun or for profit, except for the way that John originally opened the issue and conversation on the security mailing list. So yeah, it's kind of a neat thing. I think it was more that technically, I think that the more curious part about running this advisory, with all the people involved, was that it made most sense for an advisory to run against the specifications, even though that's not really a place to have an advisory, because it's all the implementations that would technically have the, kind of vulnerability effectively, if you want to classify it as such. But we kind of coordinated that effort, and we'll see all the different services and containers roll out their own fixes and mitigations accordingly. So that's neat. I do think that probably we should coordinate a blog on the OCI. I had not even thought about that until we like pushed the submit button. I just posted made that post to the dev mailing list, and should now reach out to Chris and Amy about, you know, having some kind of wording. But I'd welcome any thoughts on messaging otherwise, and questions. Like, please, if you have curiosities, or, you know, because it was kind of a new process. We've gone through CVEs with like Run C before, and that's pretty straightforward. But this was kind of different than any CVE I'd been involved in. Okay, rowdy bunch of questions. Good. Here's their chat admin that I'm missing. Okay, no worries. Simple topic. Let's move on. Josh, do the thing. You've had some good mailing list posts, and you're trying to beat the drum lately.
Yes, I was told last week the mailing list is the place to be, so I've been overly active on the mailing list. I don't know that it's helping, but that's what I'm doing. So OCI conformance is a little out of shape right now. We had put together last year a page that was auto testing a bunch of registries. There's several problems with that, which I listed in the mailing list conversation I started, which I linked to in the HackMD here. But basically, number one is that they were put together by me and Peter and not supported by the registries, who are the ones that should be the ones claiming conformance. So it's not really a fair assessment of like what's really going on. And then kind of like a bigger issue is to test something on a nightly basis assumes that like what you've proved conformance for is that your product is locked, and that also the spec is locked, or the conformance suite is locked, and neither of those are true. So what I'm proposing instead is we just simply tear down that page right now. And I opened a PR to do this. I don't know who's in control of merging that, so I pinged Chris. But basically, when you submit for conformance, you can add a badges markdown file, and then we make a new results page that if you've added the badges, we can then show that on the table, and it will link to your CI, your GitHub Actions, doing your stuff. You can also submit conformance and not put the badges, and just put the HTML and XML files, and you're good to go. But this way we can have live results, as well as each minor version of each spec, and check a box. This registry conforms for 1.0. This registry conforms for 1.1. And we can use the repo and what's in the repo to build that and get rid of the whole idea of like this like wall of shame that shows all this red where there's really nothing going on there. So is there any like, I feel like I won't get a lot of pushback on this, but is there any opposition to that?
I mean, I guess what would be different this way? I mean, you had to put a little time, and we did, and I think we had to go back and update it again because something was changed, but it wasn't overly taxing. So I'm not sure what would change. Is the
yeah,
effort any
well,
different this time?
Okay, so is the effort any different? Well, yes, because I don't even know how many registries there are out there. So basically, Open Containers is managing the list of these registries. And the topic I brought up last week is the whole idea of the OCI conformance reboot was to mimic what Kate's conformance is doing, where you could submit your own vendor. So, and if you look at that repo, there's like hundreds of Kubernetes distributions you've never heard of. And I'm assuming, I mean, it's probably not that large for OCI, but if somebody's like building a registry in their basement and they want to submit, I don't know. I think it's more scalable from like taking responsibility off of this organization for running people's tests for them. And instead, like, I even put like, I'm going to keep around a branch that has those actions. So if you want to make like, ACR live registry tests and just copy those files in, you run them and submit them, it's still going to show the badge. And if you're not on the list, then you're not considered conformant anymore. But I don't think it's fair that like there's certain registries that we put together that are showing green, but the maintainers of those registries didn't help like submit conformance, so.
No, I think what you're saying is you guys did some for the registries and it wasn't ever there. So it became a wall of shame because you put up some red badges and gave them a chance to fix it. And not everybody took the time. So rather than having a list of shame, is it just, it's an incomplete list. And if you want to be in the list, then you submit your.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's almost the same process. It's just a matter you're removing the preloaded.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it felt like the right thing to kind of like put the carrot and with the stick and all that, but it just hasn't worked out that way. And there's some things like, there will be some things like we had in Amazon, like Amazon was showing all green, but then Amazon CLI changed the way that they did password standard in, so that it broke. And do I fix that? So I think put the onus on the owners, and that's still not the definitive source of whether you're conformant. You submitted conformance once for 1.0 and you're there. If you want to show live results as a matter of transparency to your users, then you can do that. My other thing I sent out yesterday was we need maintainers for that repo. And I saw Vince and Steve already volunteered, but it's really a low, it's really like a low responsibility job. If someone's submitting conformance, like I'm not sure that it's our responsibility to like double check their work, that they're conformant. So if they're lying, they're lying, and you pretty much are just going to merge what comes in. I mean, maybe I'm not thinking hard enough about it, but we just need some people there to press the buttons. And then beyond that, my topic last week is like, we need people to submit results. So somebody from GitLab had sent a thing, and I think that's great that they opened an issue. From here, I'm going to basically try to go to the registries I know about, open an issue, and ask them to do that individually. And that's what Stephen Day recommended I do also. So, so seeking, I don't know, as many people as we can get. I suggested like we have 2 from each spec because the conformance will be around specs, even though it's just distribution right now. And Steve, you volunteered, even though you're not technically a maintainer, it seems, but like, if you're willing, then I'm fine with that.
I was just, you were looking for help in places I was offering help.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's realistic for us to like, is the expectation we're gonna go log into each one of those registries and try all those features? Like, you know, there seems to be some, it's a good question to figure out what is the process.
Yeah, and then like kind of like piggybacking on this too, as we put together a group of maintainers for this, maybe we can use this as the test ground to hash out this like maintainers files stuff. Like Alexa sent this email to me or to the chain that the maintainers file is the definitive source. And then I looked at the repos, there's like half of them don't even have that file. And then the OCI conformance stuff has people who haven't been active since like 2015. So I think we still need to do some work there. But I yield my time.
Josh, are these tests versioned?
They're versioned if you want them to, I guess. And I made it, the proposal is like generic enough to put any type of badge. So, but my thoughts were that you would use main open containers and main on your software. And the same applies to cloud registries, like you're using live instances and open containers main. So it would have a column on this new table that would just show like, is your registry latest conforming?
So let's say that the disk spec moves from 100 to 101. So I may be compliant with 100, but not compliant with 101 based on the tests.
Yes. So we would show a green check that you're compliant with 1.0. According to if you look at the instructions, it actually says minor versions are all you need to submit for. So if you break for 101, like that's a bad thing, but you've submitted for 1.0. So we would show a green check for the registry because you've submitted, and maybe your badge will show red, but then you could fix that in main on your software and it will show green live, and we don't have to make any changes in the open containers.
So I wonder if it should be based on main or it should be based on the release branches, because one of the things we were discussing in one of the recent meetings was main would start to have things that were pending the next release so that people could start to build some stability around the whatever is defined in main as an upcoming release. And the fact that it's in main and not cut to release also suggests that it's not final. Like we were talking about number 111.
Okay, well, so right now, let me get that PR so that I'm not just. So my proposal right now is that you would. Sorry, I'm pulling this up. It's in Zoom, but I should put it here too. So right now it's just like add a single file under live/registry name/badges. But what we could also do is v10/registry name/badges, and we can show badges for a lock, and we can show badges for a live also. So both, we could do both, or just like what the tests right now are doing is main of everything. So that's what we have right now. And so that's what I was trying to mimic with this proposal. And that's kind of a hard PR to look at. Let me get the actual, let me get the text for that. So I'm open to suggestions, but overall, like I think that the tests need to be run by the registries. Like that's the overall. And I think like we can use this web page that we have to remake a new one. But we also need people to submit to make that web page. So
I had a question. So would the conformance repo make sure that there is a GitHub action published? Like, if is that the model or?
so it would simply, the thing I'm thinking is that it would simply allow for badges coming from, it could be Travis, it could be actions, it could be anything. And you just give us badges and we'll build a mass, like a main, for the dashboard,
Okay.
just concat those files in. So whatever badges you put, you know, if you want to do some cross-site scripting on the, you know, whatever you want to do. But yeah, it's just like some people want to run all the workflows. So I have the option that you could put 4 badges for each of the workflows, or maybe you want to just run an all-in-one test. Or maybe like Vanessa had wanted to submit something for her registry, but then we lost her because she had already done all the CI work on her like Django thing. And so it would have been a lot easier for her to just throw a badge like, I already am testing this. But like, just to be clear, I'm proposing this as an optional thing because it is not scalable to rely on these badges to actually prove conformance. I think we need to go the same route as Kate's conformance. Vendors we take them on their word that they're conformant by nature, that they submitted a PR. And part of the PR is like, give a README of how you could reproduce this. So anyone could come in and be like, actually, hey, your registry isn't conformant. I just tried it.
Is there a plan to have a canonical example? Like, is the spec going to be, is the conformant test going to run against something like distribution, or that others can see? Like, this is how.
I would love for that to be the case. And I'm happy to. So yeah, it's a little bit hazy. Like as far for the open source ones, I guess anyone could submit, but I think it's like, I wouldn't want to like come in and submit Zot because I'm not like,
Right.
I'm not the one that's, you know, so I will, once we get these changes in, I will do a bundle bar one that we can use as a reference. But then I'm going to basically go to each of the open source projects. I don't know how to like, what's the proper way to, like for ACR, like how would I submit this request? Like obviously you're here, so I can tell you, but
I'm the engineering manager for ACR, so I'll pick it up. I understand that having open containers run the tests for other registries and other vendors doesn't make sense. So I totally support it. I'm just trying to get the direction of, okay, this is where a dev would go and submit the tests and make sure it's healthy. Just trying to get more details there. So there's,
it is very hazy. So yes, we need like some people to do it to have some examples, but I didn't like, these instructions were very copy pasted from Kate's conformance. If you look at what Kate's conformance is doing, that is exactly what we want to do. So look at some of the recent PRs. But if, you know, I don't even know who's like, me and Chris have admin on this repo, but then we have Rob Dolan and Stephen Wally, and I don't know those people. And so I think I'm just waiting for Chris. Once this is in.
That's what I was about to say. Like, that was the original conformance certification working group. 7 years ago. Yeah, waiting on Chris in that one part.
But yeah, Sajay, I'll do bundle bar and I'll share with you that submission.
Sounds great. So the current workflows, you have a branch under Blood Orange IO / OCI conformance, right? And the 4 YAMLs are in there for the workflow. So what I think you're expecting is that we own that in our repository.
Yes.
And then we have a regular action, CI/CD, whatever works for us, and then submit a badge. So I just need to figure out how we can get moved over, and totally fine. It makes perfect sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So my second message on that chain was I'm keeping a branch that has all those YAMLs. So they mostly just work. A lot of them were just not working because we had out-of-date credentials for some of the clouds. ACR, I think, was good to go though. So you guys just need to, put the right secrets in GitHub and it should work.
And but putting on more like an open containers hat here, I don't think having all registry credentials inside one giant repo, being able to hit every cloud is something that is maintainable in the long run, right? Like you're looking at, I don't know, it grows, it's going to get out of hand anyway, so it's fine.
Not the most secure model either.
I'm paying for some S3 stuff, and I don't want to pay for that. So I want my 5 cents back.
I know you were saying bundle bar is one of your examples. Does it make sense for us to submit something to distribution as well? Make them another example.
Yes, just like I'm saying, like I think it's more appropriate for it to come from an owner of that project. So I don't know if we have any on the call. I think Steve actually. But yes, 100%. Most registries are conformant, so any that we can get to submit. And I know like Zod, I think, is running these tests. They already have their own badge. So like it's just a matter of submitting the file. And then we need people to click the merge button. And then we need to know who the maintainers are. But once we have that, we'll be good. All right, I yield again.
Good stuff. That's I want the process to work well, and I think I bet one thing in this is that, like you said, nobody wants a wall of shame, and the other part about I think what really drove the Kate conformance piece is having something like a certification process. Distributions, Kubernetes distributions that wanted to have that certification marker, and that was something we, particularly back to those 2 names, we're trying to work out years ago of like, how do we drive a certification process? And it was less easy to pin down, and it was kind of like the loop that would dovetail that whole thing back together. So.
Yeah, it does seem like with the Kate's thing, there's more of a business value in getting that check. Because I think, right, there's something with KubeCon where like if you have that check, you can do certain things. So we don't have that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Would creating a better carrot help, or is this just not something people are overly focused on? I mean, it did take time. It was something we had to go spend, allocate time to go off and do. So I'm not, if folks aren't interested in doing it more than a couple, then I'm not advocating for the wall of shame. I thought that was always an interesting approach, but should we invest in this, or what's the right balance here? What do other registry operators want to do?
Maybe let's get a bunch in there and then we'll award people with the medal all at once, and then everyone can have a medal. And then for the future medal holders, they can be jealous. But I don't know. I think there's something with open containers where you're like a member organization, right? Is it you just pay a bunch of money somewhere, or how does it work?
Well, there's a difference between being a member of open containers and is the registry conformant? Because
Yeah,
it could-
that was the difference.
yeah, I mean, you could have a registry that's conformant that has nothing to do,
Right.
you're not a member of OCI. Those are really different things.
Yeah. And I think the fact that the registry API was used for so long before it became a distribution spec conversation was the Kate's conformance got out in front of the train on that one, and distribution kind of lagged in that conversation, so it's already been used widely rather than saying really you ought to have this certified moniker, certified annotation on your service. So it would be mostly it'd be kind of a lagging process, and I think that's what we're feeling here. Is it like encouraging people? What is the win here, or the value in somebody saying that? Because if they aren't strictly conformant or whatever, if we like point out the areas where they're not conformant, is that a big deal? Is it there's no business value in them pursuing that per se. So how to make it just like an evident process without making a wall of shame, like a way that people would be encouraged to say, actually, yeah, here's where we try and show nightlies, or like history of where like we might have changed something, even if it's just like less, like there's a couple of ways we could pursue that, but it's kind of a funny, I guess, sociological challenge at this point, given the timing of how the specs rolled out.
I think beyond a 1.0, there's also a lot of value to the end users. So if we roll out a 1.1 with some new features, you could know instantly by going to this page who has these new features that I want to try out. Right now, it's like everyone just scrambles to add the new feature, and we never know. I mean, that's like with the artifact stuff, like that was a whole, who supports Helm charts, and there was no page to show that. There still is no page to show that. And so I think once if we can move the specs forward and add new minor versions, I think this is extremely helpful to the users.
Yeah, that was an interesting one too, because technically if you followed the spec, you should be able to support the whole Helm chart pattern. So that is the conundrum we got caught in the first place, was doesn't need to be a spec, because all it is a guidance on how to use the specs. But for how Vincent was saying, is people implemented registries before the specs were complete, and not everybody had the open media types as the spec said they should be. So I think having a way to reference it is a good idea. I'm just reflecting back that we didn't get, I think there was only 2 or 3 that actually did submit conformance updates. I mean, ultimately, it just came back to the registries anyway. Basically, customers just started opening up issues on the registries. Hey, do you support Helm? Do you support this? And that's what drove the features. So I'm not sure if this will change that behavior in either way.
And I first of all did not mean to open up another can of worms here with artifacts, but
No, that's a fine one, because I mean, it could be even as simple as, does this, like you said, different media types or otherwise, and if there's like,
in a parallel universe where artifact stuff was done in distribution spec and that was rolled out as a 1.1, then this would be insanely useful. So that's sort of what I'm thinking of with this stuff. And I'm looking to the future. I know the past, things happened in the past, so I'm thinking of the future.
No, it's good to learn from the past. That's kind of what I'm bringing up is like, what can we learn from what we've tried to make it better?
Good. Besides the discussion, I think it's something that we all need to be aware of, and it almost feels like once some of this, like there's a couple of patterns in place, then we can at least start kind of a campaign and actually ask all the members here who are involved in those projects, whether it's like you said, ZOT, ACR, GCR, otherwise, people to step up, and that might require folks to have to have conversations with either their employer or otherwise, but this one must have people step up to say, okay, I'll actually volunteer to have that conversation with, you know, the company I work for or represent or otherwise, projects that I'm contributing to and stuff like that. And I think that's another thing that is easy to not want to do. But if you want it to, if we want it to succeed, which we do, then people have to actually step up and have that conversation. It's part of being a member here. Anything else on this?
I'm totally good. I would love to hear from some people to be in the merge posse. I will submit a PR to add Stephen and Vince. I'll wait to hear for a few more people, hopefully.
One of the things okay, so moving on from that, one of the things that I was just scrolling back on that I particularly called out last week, and on the point of like all of us stepping up, that I did not do specifically, I'll shame myself here that last week I said we should keep ourselves accountable for when we take action items, and then I did not do either one of the things that I said I was going to do last week. But from the 11th meeting, so particularly figuring out what it takes to kick off the vote proposal. Phil, can we chat about that, or otherwise move that forward to actually get the vote done on that working group, so it's not yet again languishing?
Yep, absolutely.
Like I was saying, I don't expect that you watched the video from last week, but effectively, I did not see it as that working group TOB proposal was in, you know, particularly in my lap or any of the TOB's lap to say, yes, this is ready to vote on and start the vote. So in that way, you know, was taking blame that if it was in my lap, then I didn't realize it. So if it is in my lap, then we need to get it voted on. I thought it was waiting on the you know, Steve Lockey, whoever, to say, yes, please go ahead and vote on this.
Yeah, I assumed we were ready once we got John's positive response, but I was hoping the vote would be on, you know, there'd just be that edit to the text to add his name to that list of owners. And then I think the only other thing was Derek brought up in that issue, should this actually be a PR so that when we approve it, or when the vote happens, if it's approved, it gets merged, and we, just like a lot of other projects, you end up with a directory of, you know, proposals that have come through. So to me, that's the only like nit about the process. I think From there, I assume we just have to declare a date at which the vote tally is closed.
I mean, I'm happy to follow whatever process that, you know, we want. I've kind of been waiting for direction on how you wanted to proceed. I think this is just the, you know, hot potato, whatever it is that just has gotten bounced around. I'm not sure who owns what next steps, but let's just identify what that is and make the next steps. So what are we saying? Do we want to have that discussion now? We have a couple of minutes left. Like, what do we want to do as next?
Well, that's what I was just looking. We do have a proposals directory, and it looks like several of these things, but those were all proposals. It looks like those are all proposals for repos, not.
We did say that there would be a repo as a result of this, so it's not completely inconsistent. Is the pivot request for repos, or is it pivot proposals of which repos is an outcome?
Well, I mean, almost like the kept workflow. Sometimes you'll have Kubernetes keps that don't create new repos. They just show a particular, you know, effort, how it's orchestrated, and they commit a markdown file that shows this is what this effort is about and how it's tracked and who to get involved with or in contact. I'm just saying, that is a point, and it could go into this. It could go into the TOB. This could be a PR to the TOB proposals repo, just fine. I'm just saying, looking at this repo, everything in there, we're all existing repo creations of repos, not something that kind of cross sections that as a working group. So maybe the file is WD whatever, you know, markdown. That's fine. So just to be concrete, we're ready to vote. You wanted to see John added as a in that, you know, stakeholders list or whatever, and it'd be probably just as well that this is open a PR that's a copy paste of what the final agreed upon op message is there. And then he sneezes, and then we get the response.
Yeah, I think that I think that's the right step. Get this in a markdown file as a PR. Make sure.
And Phil froze. Okay, so the week that could actually be really quick. Is that all sound okay, Steve?
Sounds fine by me. I should be able to take care of it today or tomorrow.
Yeah, and then most of these votes kick off, and probably
do we
have
want
like
to do a vote over Thanksgiving week though? Like, what do we want to do as the start and stop?
Beans.
And I did share, to be fair, I also shared John's thought of, that's why we suggested John in the first place, is to get more registry operators involved. Unfortunately, most of the registry operators are just, everybody's super busy. And they didn't really, they would try to engage at times, but they weren't comfortable signing up to have their names on a routine, regular meeting list. So I don't think the working group owners, the way we've got it listed, excludes anybody from being participants. It was more of, these are the folks that will be there on a regular basis so that we don't have every meeting doing a reset kind of thing.
Yeah. The maybe with the holiday in the middle of it, and we just make it a little bit longer, but let's go ahead and time box it, even if it's like, you know, December 1st or something. That gives more than that basically gives 2 weeks from right now. If sometimes we only do those votes for 7 days, if we go ahead and get it out of the way now, then it gives people on the front end and back end side of this US holiday.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Do we want to go ahead, Phil?
Yeah, I was just thinking of the first as well. That way, the next time we meet, the vote should be closed and we can move forward.
Yeah, move on. Yep.
Sounds good.
What was the other thing I was just looking at there? Oh yeah, and I didn't do anything with the the grouping types, but to me, that some of that breaks down into some of the other threads that are going on about like maintainers and cleanup and stuff that Josh has put a lot of effort in as well, getting repos looking uniform and how to possibly have wording breakdown of voting and governance and maintainer paths and such like that. All good work. Between all the things going on, those two things got backburnered for me. So thanks for helping talk through the vote kickoff process. Does anybody have anything else? We have 10 minutes left. Sajay, do you usually have classical music going on in the background?
My son is practicing. I can't do anything about it.
It's fantastic. I feel like I hear it often. It's good. Good. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. We can reclaim 10 minutes and go to have a bio break. Bye, everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you.